Right after I made my Sesame Street entity video, I received a number of comments from people who claimed to have had the same type of experience. I just wanted to take this video to basically go through some of the user comments and stories that I received after this happened. I was surprised by how many there were, and this is the video where I'm going to basically go through them. I received a comment from somebody named Canella. It read, I remember when I was about 4 years old in 1978, having an encounter very similar to this. I've never talked about it for fear of being ridiculed. My mom put me in my bedroom to have an afternoon nap, and I can fully remember playing with what looked like Donald Duck. I know you're probably laughing now, thinking how dumb, but I swear it really happened. I remember 1 minute I was happily playing, and then the next minute being absolutely terrified. It seemed to turn on me and start screaming and shouting, and I remember banging and banging on my bedroom door, screaming for my mom to let me out, because I couldn't reach the door handle. My mom had moved it so that it was near the top of the door and unreachable. I can honestly still remember how terrified I was, because this was one of my earliest memories. I never told anyone because who would believe that something looking like Donald Duck would be scaring me in my room? I would sound like a lunatic if I talked about it. But I swear this happened, and nobody has to believe me. I just wonder if anyone else out there has encountered anything like this and has been scared to talk about it, and maybe after hearing that it's happened to other people, they might come forward and talk about it. I received another comment from somebody named B. Cop. I had Muppets as a kid. I was 5 or 6 years old. They all had musical instruments. I was laying down and I looked up, and they all looked at me and started playing these instruments. No noise, just movements. I ran out of the bedroom so fast, crying and scared. So to see this video, holy shit, I have the chills. This was 1985 in the suburbs of Chicago. I received a comment from somebody named Bobs and Vijane, I think. They said, when I was a kid in the late 1990s, I had something like this happen to me, although it wasn't a character from a TV show. I saw some large, furry bipedal teddy bear thing on several occasions in the house I grew up in when my family and I lived in California. I don't remember what his face looked like, but I remember that his head was abnormally large when you consider the body size. On one occasion in particular, I remember poking a finger into his stomach. I say his because I know that it was a male, and that his name was Gore, if that is indeed how it was spelled. I was too young to know how to write at the time, and that spelling has stuck with me. I also remember that his fur was brown, like my favorite childhood stuffed bunny. Curiously though, I remember it with a teddy bear-like shape. My mom also remembers this. She told me that I would talk to Gore fairly regularly. That's how I know I'm not just crazy, because someone else actually knows about it. And speaking of haunted toys, I used to have a toy fire truck that would make noises when you pushed its buttons. Well, my mom also tells me that it would make noises unprompted when no one could have possibly pushed the buttons. That went on until one day she had enough. She yelled at the truck, and since then it stopped making noises. Come to think of it, a lot of strange things happened in that house. I just didn't realize it at the time, since I was so young. Now that I've gotten older, the strange things still happen from time to time, but I recognize that they shouldn't be happening, have happened, during immediately after the fact. Here's a story from somebody named Monica White. I wanted to tell my story from when I was a little girl. It was in the late 1960s, between 1961 and 1966. Me and my little brother were growing up with my grandmother in Wichita, Kansas. He was an albino and had scarlet fever at birth. Our room had 2 twin beds, and his crib was in the middle of the beds. Being an albino, he was legally blind in the daytime and could see better at night, so he tended to stay awake all night. We had a walk-in closet in our room, and at night, human-sized toys, a toy soldier with a drum, a Raggedy Ann doll, and a teddy bear, would come out of the closet and dance around his crib. Back in those days, the houses had flowered wallpaper, and I remember counting the flowers on the wallpaper, turning away from the dolls trying to get to sleep. I don't remember them making any sound, but it was just their presence that kept me awake. This went on every night for about 2 years, until he became too hard to handle and was institutionalized. This incident is what caused me to be interested in the paranormal from a child to an adult. I am 57 now, and I believe that he manifested the dolls to keep him company. I have seen other things and people off and on during my life. It tends to run in my family. Thankfully, I haven't seen anything that really scared me. I am an avid viewer of your videos, and I have yet to hear of human-sized dolls. To be honest with you, Monica, I've never heard of that either, so... Here's a story from someone named Kaylee Mather. I keep an open mind. When I was about 4 or 5, I was staying at my great-grandmother's house for a week over the summer. One night there was a storm, and as the house was old, the windows rattled and strong gusts of wind made things in the room shake. It creeped me out as I was young, and started to get upset. I looked out the window and it was dark. All of a sudden, this small box thing, about the size of a microwave, came floating through the trees. It was multicolored, and then at one point it looked like a TV screen. It looked as if there was a cartoon on, and it looked like an audience of people watching a clown juggling on a unicycle on a stage. The people in the clown were all black silhouettes. My heart was just pounding, and I looked away for a second, and then when I looked back, it had gone back to multicolors and disappeared in the distance, as if it was shrinking at the same time. I knew this because it was still close by the time it disappeared. I put myself back in bed and just lay there confused, as it was like a dream, but I wasn't asleep. I was wide awake. My gran came up and I tried to explain to her what I saw. She told me I was being silly and offered me a warm drink to help me sleep. I forgot about it after that night, but I've told a few people this over the years and have put it down to a vivid child imagination. Who knows? The memory of what I saw is still pretty clear, and never seen anything like it since. Here's a story by Dr. R.D. I've been followed by bright orbs of light that give me a feeling of dread and terror. I was 11 in 1988 at the time. I saw a terrifying face smiling menacingly at me through my grandma's bedroom window as a child. I was on the 2nd floor and it was winter, and nobody ever believed me because I said it was Jack Frost, as I was told Jack Frost was outside. Grandma was joking about the cold when I was a child, but I saw that scary ass face, and I still see it when I close my eyes. It's my destiny now, 30 years later, to find the truth, and I will. This was sent to me by Hollow Eyes NHL. I've been waiting 36 years of my life to hear a story close to mine and my twin brothers. Our visits started in 1981 when the Count from Sesame Street came. My brother and I shared a room. We were still in our cribs, but we were old enough to climb out if we wanted. I was awoke one night to my brother crying, barely speaking English. We had our own twin language. I asked him what was wrong. He pointed over to my side of the wall. As I looked, there was the Count standing looking at us both. He went on to tell us many things. He was friendly. I know he was telling us not to be afraid and info about our futures. No matter how comfortable he was trying to make us feel, my twin was not having it. He was afraid of it. Being the stronger twin all my life and with no fear, I was worried for my brother. I climbed out of my crib to go get help. As I went to flick the bedroom light on, I startled this entity. It ran towards the wall, turning into its true form, a gray, then morphed into a black blob and left underneath the dresser. Many events happen in this story going forward, but that would be too long to write. In the end, this wasn't talked about until we were around 10 years old. I asked my brother, was it a dream or was it real? Did he remember it? My brother looked at me in shock and said, yes, I remember it as well, like it was yesterday. I know for us, this has led to many years of events for us. We have been waiting, searching for someone that had an experience like ours. I felt like I knew this entity, like it was family to me. I feel like we will meet again in the future. Here's one from Lone Wolf 9390. I was born in 1976. I have a vivid memory from my childhood, I believe it was when I was 3 or 4 years old, of sitting in the living room of our second-floor apartment one night watching The Muppet Show while my parents were in the kitchen getting dinner ready. It was a very large, older-style house located in Stockbridge, Michigan, that was owned at the time by my grandparents. The upper floor had been divided into several apartments. For some reason, while I was watching the Muppets, I felt compelled to look towards the window. Pressed against the glass were 2 hands, but they did not look human. The fingers were very long and skinny, and came to points instead of being rounded at the tips, and the skin was a very pale shade of grayish-white. I was so terrified I couldn't even speak. I just sat there, staring towards the window, when suddenly the hand slid down the glass and disappeared from sight. I never told anyone about it until years later, and no one really believed me. To this day I have no idea what it was I saw that night, and it makes my blood run cold to think what could have happened if I had actually gone to the window instead of being frozen in place with fear.